The moment this crossed the line from rumor to something far more dangerous wasn't when the whisper started, it was when the silence broke, and suddenly the one man who was never supposed to speak became the center of everything. Because now, behind closed doors, away from cameras, away from carefully crafted statements, Prince Harry is no longer asking politely, he's demanding answers. And the person he allegedly turned to isn't a royal insider, not a palisade, not even a journalist. It's the one man who knew Meghan, Markle before the world ever did, her ex-husband Trevor Engelson. For years, Trevor stayed silent, almost unnaturally silent, like someone who knew far more than he was willing to risk saying. And that silence, that's what makes this shift so explosive now, because people close to the situation are claiming something changed, not gradually, not subtly, but sharply, like a decision finally made after years of holding back. And right at the same time, those old buried rumors about Meghan's past started resurfacing again, the ones nobody in mainstream media wants to touch. The idea that before fame, before the royal wedding, before the carefully built image, there may have been a chapter that was never meant to be seen. And here's where things take a turn that feels almost too dramatic to ignore, because insiders are now suggesting that Harry himself wasn't aware of just how deep those rumors went. Not at the beginning, not even during the years when everything seemed united and solid, but only recently, as fragments started reconnecting, whispers started aligning, and certain details, names, timelines, inconsistencies began forming something that didn't look like random gossip anymore. It looked like a pattern. And when you're in that position, when the story you thought you understood suddenly doesn't match the pieces you're now seeing, you don't just sit back, you start digging. Quietly at first, carefully, asking questions in ways that don't raise alarms, but then something happens, something clicks, and that's when the search becomes urgent. That's when Harry, according to those watching this unfold closely, allegedly made a move no one expected, reaching out directly or indirectly to Trevor. Think about that for a second. The man who existed before everything. The man whose version of events never made it into the official narrative. The man who, by all accounts, watched Meghan's transformation from the inside before she stepped into global attention. If there was anyone who might know whether certain parts of her past were incomplete, reshaped, or entirely removed, it would be him. And suddenly, this isn't just about rumors anymore. It becomes about perspective, because what Trevor knows isn't filtered through headlines or public statements. It's personal. It's lived. It's the kind of knowledge that doesn't disappear just because the story moved on without him. And that's exactly what makes this alleged contact so intense, because if Harry is truly seeking answers, he isn't going to the palace, he's going to the past. Now here's where the tension tightens, because running alongside this alleged outreach is the rumor that refuses to die, no matter how many times it's dismissed or ignored, the claim that somewhere buried in those early years, before the spotlight, before the royal title, there was a child, a daughter, and that the entire situation was handled in a way that left almost no trace behind, no records that are easy to access, no public acknowledgement, just fragments, whispers, and people who claim they've seen pieces that don't quite fit the timeline we've all been told. And that's where Harry's position becomes almost impossible to ignore, because everything he's built his life on over the past few years, every decision, every public stance, every sacrifice, rests on a very clear belief that he knows the truth about the person he chose to protect, to stand beside, to build a life with. But what happens when that certainty starts to crack? What happens when the questions aren't coming from critics or tabloids, but from inside the story itself? That's not just uncomfortable, that's destabilizing, because this isn't about proving a rumor right or wrong, it's about whether the foundation of everything he's defended so fiercely is exactly what he thought it was. And when that question enters the room, it doesn't leave quietly. It spreads. It touches every memory, every moment, every decision that was made based on that belief. And according to those observing the situation, that's exactly what's happening now. Not a single explosive confrontation that ends everything, but a slow, intense unraveling of certainty, where answers don't come easily and silence starts to feel heavier than any statement ever could. Meanwhile, the wider royal circle isn't reacting the way people expected. There's no loud response, no dramatic denial, no attempt to publicly shut down the conversation. Instead, there's something else, something quieter but far more telling, a kind kind of stillness, the kind that doesn't come from confusion, but from calculation, from people watching, waiting, understanding that whatever is unfolding here isn't something that can be handled with a simple statement or a controlled headline. Because if this really is about the past, about what was known, what wasn't, and what might still be hidden, then it's not just a personal issue anymore. It becomes something bigger, something that reaches beyond Harry and Meghan and into the structure of everything connected to them. And at the center of it all sits that one decision, the alleged moment Harry reached out to Trevor, because that's the moment the story stopped being one-sided. That's the moment another perspective entered the picture. And once that happens, once a second version of events is even considered, the entire narrative starts to shift. Because the truth, whatever it is, doesn't stay hidden forever. Not when too many pieces exist. Not when too many people know fragments of it. Not when someone finally decides they need to hear it for themselves. And right now, everything points to one thing. Harry isn't just listening anymore. He's searching. And the deeper he goes, the harder it becomes to turn back. And once that search begins, once it moves beyond curiosity and into something that feels urgent, almost unavoidable, the entire atmosphere shifts in a way that people around them can't ignore. Because this is no longer about outside pressure or public criticism. This is something internal, something personal, something that doesn't fade when the headlines change. And according to those watching closely, that's exactly what's happening inside Montecito right now. A kind of tension that doesn't explode outward, but instead settles into the spaces between conversations, into pauses that last a little too long, into questions that don't get answered the first time they're asked. Because here's the thing that makes this different from everything that came before. Every attack, every controversy, every wave of criticism they faced together could be framed as external, something to fight against, something to unite over, something that reinforced the idea that they were standing on the same side. But what happens when the questions aren't external anymore? When they don't come from critics or media or institutions, but from within the relationship itself, from the past that one person lived and the other is only now beginning to understand piece by piece. And suddenly the dynamic changes, because you can't fight something that isn't outside you, you can only face it. And when those two versions exist side by side, the one that's been shared and the one that's being quietly questioned, they don't blend easily. They create friction, they create doubt, and doubt is the one thing that doesn't stay contained. It spreads, it touches everything, it changes how. You look at moments that once felt certain, it makes you re-examine conversations, timelines, details that didn't seem important at the time, but now feel loaded with meaning. And that's where Harry is said to be right now. Not at a conclusion, not at a final answer, but in the middle of that process, where everything feels uncertain and every new piece of information only leads to more questions. And the hardest part of that isn't what you find, it's what you don't. The gaps, the spaces where something should be but isn't, the silence that doesn't explain itself. Because silence can mean many things, but in situations like this, it often means that something is being held back, intentionally or not. Meanwhile, the ripple effect of this situation is starting to reach beyond just the two of them. Because when something like this begins to unfold, it doesn't stay isolated. It affects how others around them respond, how they position themselves, how they prepare for what might come next. And those closest to the royal family are reportedly watching this with a level of attention that goes beyond simple curiosity, because they understand that whatever this becomes, whatever direction it takes, it has implications that extend far beyond a single relationship. And what's most striking about all of this is how little is being said publicly. Because in situations where nothing is happening, people tend to talk, they dismiss, they clarify, they move quickly to control the narrative. But when something real is unfolding behind the scenes, something that isn't fully understood yet, that's when the silence becomes noticeable, almost deliberate, as if everyone involved is waiting to see how the pieces settle before stepping forward. And that silence is where the speculation grows, where every small detail gets examined, where every movement is interpreted as a clue. Because when there's no official version of events to follow, people start building their own, connecting dots, filling in gaps, trying to make sense of something that hasn't been clearly explained. And that's exactly the environment where stories like this gain momentum, where they stop being isolated rumors and start feeling like something bigger, something that might actually lead somewhere. Because at the core of all this, beyond the drama, beyond the speculation, beyond the layers of narrative and counter-narrative, there's a single question that hasn't been answered. And until it is, nothing settles, nothing resolves, everything remains suspended in that uncertain space where possibilities exist, but certainty doesn't. And if there's one thing that defines this entire situation right now, it's that uncertainty. The sense that something is shifting, something is being uncovered, something is moving beneath the surface in a way that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. And the people closest to it aren't rushing. To define it, they're watching, waiting, understanding that whatever this turns into, it won't stay hidden forever. Because the truth, whatever shape it takes, has a way of surfacing, not all at once, not in a single dramatic moment, but in pieces, in fragments, in connections that eventually become too clear to ignore. And once that happens, once those pieces come together, the story changes, not because it was rewritten, but because it was finally seen in full. And right now, that's the stage this is in, not the beginning, not the end, but the moment where everything feels like it's on the edge of becoming something more. Something that could either collapse under its own weight or solidify into something undeniable. And the only question left is how far this search goes, how much is uncovered, and whether when it's all said and done, the answers bring clarity or something far more difficult to face.